Hello and welcome to ILoveGay today. And we are live here at the Connect Thrive Summit in Orlando. And we're here with a variety of different speakers and folks that have been in the industry forever. And we are here with Ed Salvato. How are you, Ed?
I'm doing great. How are you?
It's so much fun to be doing this together with you.
In person, not in a Zoom square.
Oh my God, it's been, this is our first conference we've been to
Amazing.
since
Yeah, I'm just thrilled. It's just been awesome. Just like bumping into people again in the corridor and having meaningful conversations.
Yep.
You just can't replicate that on Zoom easily.
By the way, I wanted to make it clear that I enjoy watching your posts when you go bicidling around New York City.
Sure. Yeah, that has kept me sane and it kept me fit to a certain extent. And also, it's allowing me to kind of rediscover or really discover parts of the city I've never seen before in detail, in close detail. It's been really awesome, actually.
I'm enjoying seeing that. But no, we've got the history. It's you were with Out and About and PlanetOut, and it's just. But fast forward, you still, you've remained in the industry.
Absolutely.
We both have in different ways,
Right.
and here we are. But even yesterday we had a really good conversation because there's so much we could talk about. We could be here for hours, and but we really had a good conversation about it because it comes up all the time: authenticity in advertising and in imagery and all that. And you had some really good points on that.
Silver linings to this horrific event and this horrific tragedy to people and to our industry. One of the silver linings is we have to rethink everything. We should take this as an opportunity. Let's rethink everything that we're doing. How can we do things better? How can we do things more with more engagement? How can we do things more authentically? And I think advertising is something we all just jump to that, and it's normal. It's because what we see in terms of marketing is we see the advertising. We're all consumers, and we're all people who, a lot of us are people who help create the ads, but we're all consumers, and we see ads all the time. But the marketing mix is so far beyond simply advertising, right? And you know this. It's all these different touch points. It's all these different activities. It's the promotion. It's all this kind of stuff. It's price,
Yeah.
But I think with advertising, you have to kind of just take some steps back. Like, what is it about our destination, our hotel, our product that is compelling to different audiences?
Yeah.
And then how can we tell that story in a meaningful way to the right audience at the right time with the right message?
Yeah.
And so we love to jump to the creative, like, we're a hot beach destination. Let's get shirtless guys and then take pictures. That's kind of putting the cart before the horse. Like, really, let's talk about, especially with destinations that all have the same kind of assets. If you think about like a beach destination, beach, palm trees, sand, sun. It's like guys, people swimming, all this kind of stuff. What's the emotional connection that you can make between your set of assets, your destination or hotel, and then the audience that you're trying to engage? Like, what is that emotional connection? That takes a lot of work.
Yeah, but it started, it's always interesting, we come from this time of, I call it the Mad Men era.
Yeah.
In Mad Men time, it was all about, there was very few outlets. There was really key magazines, there was television coming along. And so they were really always thinking top down. They were always thinking we're in control of everything with our client, and we're going to tell America, we're going to tell the world what they need to know. And, even to look at, like the Betty Crocker housewife that was supposed to represent all housewives, and then diversity comes along through cable television channels. Internet comes along with more opportunity to express niche markets, and so everybody's always trying to figure out what imagery can I provide to kind of fit into those categories. But then my premise or my idea is that social has kind of come along and really grown over the years, and now when you're seeing, like, especially for destinations and pride festivals and the content that's being created by all these thousands and thousands of people is amazing, and it's actually really authentic because it is real.
Right.
Nobody had to think through about what am I going to put there.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. It's kind of what you were talking about earlier. We've both seen this from the early days of the internet, which is when I started working in LGBTQ travel, then gay travel, really, then sort of gay and lesbian travel. And in the late 90s, and the very first company I worked for, Out and About, I came on board to help them for a number of reasons, but also to launch the first website, which we then sold PDFs as travel guides. And it's funny that website made money from the day it opened its doors. I was like, why are we doing something if it's not making money, right? But that still, internet had the promise of creating a dialogue or of a conversation. But I think you're right. I think it took social media to actually create help set, that was the platform that allowed our conversation to take place between marketers, the product, the destination, the hotel, and we, the consumers, we, the people, us consumers. So that conversation, and then now it's almost like the conversation is taking, the power is kind of towards the people a little bit more in terms of what they're generating with their. So the marketer has to be a little bit smarter about listening. Curating, taking what works, and then trying to kind of play into that. So the goals are still all the same, and the marketing mix still is true. But that particular tool, how you create your imagery and your content, that kind of has really changed quite radically over the past 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where influencers have always been fitting in over the years, because marketers and destinations, they see that, oh wow, we can deviate from the journalistic norm and the photographers, and look at, they're creating content, but they're creating content, and they're all Instagrammers, and they're doing their thing, but they're creating this content that still fits within their realm. They're starting to look at it as a business, and sometimes that's where the word authentic probably has exploded here, because people are trying to figure out, is that influencer actually being real, or are they being paid for that?
Right.
And whatever the story may be, they are only a part of the equation. They are only a piece of the puzzle. And so there's so much going on, and I think that's just it, is that all marketers and from all walks of life, we're all trying to figure out, like, what's happening and how do I be a part of that?
Absolutely right. The authenticity is key. So, it's funny, I teach at NYU, as you know, and we have this discussion in class with the students, and it's really interesting. They're younger, obviously, the students, but they're very sophisticated, and we talk about influencers, and they talk about, well, we know that they're probably paid to go, but we still enjoy the content, we engage with the content, it grabs our attention. I think the key is that if you're a traveler or not. So, if you're following an influencer because you love them, and it's almost like a celebrity, and celebrities can sell certain things, like when even travel, but when Kim Kardashian talks about a new lipstick or a new line of clothing or whatever it is, that it can sell out like instantaneously. It's a little different when it comes to travel and tourism, because it's not so easy to just click and buy a trip to Paris, because you actually have to go on the trip to Paris. Whereas the lipstick comes to you, you go to the destination. That's the big difference with travel and tourism. So it takes more than just the compelling content. That's part of, but that's an essential part of it, and it just can't be completely top down anymore, unless that what's driving the creative process, the top down creative process, is at least driven in part by a really good, solid understanding of the market and what really truly resonates for people. I would argue emotion is a bigger piece of the puzzle than a lot of people give credit for. I think, if I always ask people, what's the very first memory you ever had, and instantly you think about something that was kind of emotional. Like for me, it was a birthday when I turned 3. Think about how long ago that memory is, because there was an emotion involved. So the emotions are really, really critical, and I think that's the piece that a lot of creative people really miss. Is it's not about the sand and the palm trees and the water, because that exists in so many different places. It's how you connect somehow to that destination, or the promise of that destination, through an emotional connection.
And I think we're all figuring it out in some way, shape, or form, but it's always goes towards that key as far as what is real and what can people trust. At the end of the day, it came up yesterday a lot as far as when it comes to the word OTAs. Not everybody always understands. I don't even know exactly what that stands for. But it's the idea that how are people deciding where they're booking travel, like deciding where they're going, what they're going to do, and there's no one answer for all that. And it's just creating these first it's trying to understand the mindset of where are people going when they are starting that first concept or thought, I'm going to go somewhere and I don't really know where. And so then it becomes much more emotional, as you were saying, and experiential, and their friends and what they have to say kind of falls into it. But it's just sort of a mix of all these touch points, and it comes through. But at the end of the day, the problem is it's not just putting an ad in a magazine.
That is going to be part of what you're saying, of this huge grab bag of things, and some people, and even this gets more complicated. Some demographic emphasize certain aspects of that process, of those touch points, differently. So women tend to, all this research I did for my book, with Marin and all these, women tend to kind of surround themselves with all the material, and they're talking, and they're going with word of mouth, but they're doing a lot of research. And gay men can tend to be somewhat more impulsive and maybe a little bit more driven by the imagery. I think we've seen, I really think that's been demonstrated. It's very interesting, and that's, that how much is that changing with the sort of like the Snapchat generation, how, we're starting to see that. They're not exactly making huge travel decisions themselves. They're influencing their parents still at this point. But, how would those brand new technologies really drive the decision-making process? But it's a big process, and I can't remember how many clicks it is, the average clicks before from beginning of the process to booking. It's many clicks, and it's impossible to drive that down. Even TripAdvisor doesn't own that, or Google is starting to own a lot of that, right? Because they're providing a lot of the imagery, they're providing the maps, they're providing the reviews. So Google's starting to, they know people are clicking all over the place on all these different platforms. They're creating all those opportunities to click on their own platform. So I think they're going to be able to, they're telling us a lot about what's happening. But there's no one single thing, but you have to know which aspects of the marketing mix you need to emphasize at which points with which audiences to help drive them to make that correct decision, which is to choose your product.
I think at the end of the day, we're realizing there's a lot of right answers, and that's the best part of it. It's not like somebody could come to you and say this is right, being on YouTube, right or wrong,
and everything else is wrong.
It's like it doesn't really work that way. It's a mix, and it's just you're figuring out what mix is right for me. Do I want to test out? And that's what makes it fun.
Absolutely. So you look at my partner is a little bit younger than me, and we're different demographics in some ways. He really would resonate. A message through YouTube would resonate with him. That's his. He spends a lot of time on YouTube. I barely do unless he sends me something. I'm just not that interested in video. Is just not my thing. And so certain other messages resonate for me. But and then guess what? We'll make decisions jointly about where we travel. So that kind of complicates the matter a little bit more. But you have to be smart. Leah Chandler from Discover Puerto Rico, I think they do a lot of research, and they're really smart with what they do and the images that they create, and they demonstrably have driven increased tourism in the LGBTQ space and in other spaces through their efforts. So it takes and I was talking about this a little bit on the stage, an investment of time, people, and energy to succeed, no matter what we're talking about, especially in the LGBTQ market.
That's what makes it exciting for us.
Totally, that's what keeps us employed.
But I'm so looking forward to seeing you at more of these.
In person,
and
yes,
then,
please.
And if not sooner, between this and the IGLTA convention coming up in
Atlanta it's September, I think. I look forward to that. That's going to be talk about old home week, especially if we all have vaccines. Then we can hug again without maybe without masks, and then go to the bar and drink. That's the thing I'm totally avoiding here. I'm not getting into any social situations. I'm trying to be a super, But I think that's going to be, IGLTA is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, unheard of. So I love it. So great seeing you. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Good seeing you.
Feels good, so good, coming back again.